The artificial lighting of Phoenix Station's biolab sector cast long shadows across the polished floors as Dr. Lyra Winters analyzed her latest samples. Her dark eyes narrowed in concentration as she adjusted the holographic display, revealing the complex DNA structures of their latest drachnid specimen. The clock showed 0300-hour station time, but she barely noticed. Breakthroughs didn't follow standard schedules. The soft hum of equipment filled the lab, a familiar comfort in the vastness of space. At 42, Lyra had spent more than half her life studying alien biology, but the drachnids fascinated her like no other species. Their cellular regeneration abilities could revolutionize human medicine, if only she could unlock their secrets. A shadow fell across her workstation. Before she could turn, a massive hand gripped her shoulder, claws pressing through her lab coat. The acrid smell of drachnid pheromones filled her nostrils: anger, aggression, fear. Human female, rumbled a deep voice, its translator struggling with the guttural drachnid language. You dare study our sacred flesh? Lyra remained still, her heart racing but her voice steady. Thor. I didn't expect you until tomorrow's official consultation. The drachnid warrior's grip tightened. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled body rippled with muscle beneath ceremonial armor. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along his neck, a warning display. Your kind thinks everything can be dissected, analyzed, controlled. You forget your place in the galaxy. My research could benefit both our species, Lyra said, slowly reaching for the emergency beacon on her wrist. The medical applications alone. Thor spun her around, face inches from hers. His 4 eyes blazed with inner fire. You think us weak? Needing human medicine? His massive fist drew back. I will teach you respect. The blow never landed. A quiet voice cut through the tension like a plasma blade. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Commander Marcus Winters stood in the doorway, his lean frame deceptively relaxed. At 50, his dark hair had gone silver at the temples, but his steel-gray eyes were sharp as ever. He wore standard station uniform, no weapons visible, but Lyra knew better. In 15 years of marriage, she'd never seen him truly unarmed. Thor's bioluminescence flickered, recognition, uncertainty. The ghost of Proxima. The drachnid's translator crackled with distortion. Your reputation reaches even the high clutch. Then you know what happens next, Marcus said, taking a single step forward. Release my wife. The drachnid warrior hesitated, ancestral pride warring with survival instinct. His species respected strength above all, but Marcus Winters had earned his nickname during the Perseus conflict. Even drachnid war songs spoke of the human commander who moved like shadow and struck like lightning. Your mate violates sacred law, Thor growled, but his grip loosened. The high clutch demands. The high clutch approved this research, Lyra interrupted, twisting free. Check the diplomatic protocols. Unless this is about something else. A flash of something, fear. Crossed Thor's features. He stepped back, bio-lights dimming. You know nothing, human female. But you will. Soon, all will know. Marcus moved faster than the eye could follow. Suddenly he stood between Lyra and the drachnid, his stance casual but perfectly balanced. Threatening a Phoenix Station researcher violates 17 regulations and 2 interspecies treaties. Leave now, and we can pretend this never happened. Thor's upper lip curled, revealing serrated teeth. This isn't over, Ghost of Proxima. Greater forces are in motion than you realize. He backed toward the door, never taking his eyes off Marcus. Watch your mate carefully. Others may not be as merciful as I. After the drachnid departed, Lyra let out a shaky breath. Well, that was dramatic. She straightened her lab coat, checking that none of her samples were disturbed. How did you know to come? Marcus smiled slightly. Director Hammond's new security AI flagged unusual drachnid pheromone patterns in this sector. Thought I'd check on my favorite xenobiologist. His expression grew serious. What aren't you telling me about this research, Lyra? She hesitated, glancing at her encrypted data tablets. Marcus, I found something in their genetic structure. Something they've been hiding for centuries. If I'm right, it could change everything we thought we knew about the Drachnids. And if you're right, he said quietly, that would explain the assassination attempts on the other xenobiologists working on Drachnid biology. The ones they told us were accidents. Lyra met his eyes. We need to talk. But not here. She began securing her samples. Remember that cafe on level 7? The one with the terrible coffee but amazing security? Marcus nodded, already scanning the room for surveillance devices. I'll alert Victoria. If the Drachnids are breaking protocol this openly, something big is coming. He touched Lyra's shoulder gently. Promise me you'll be careful. I've seen that look in their eyes before, right before the Perseus conflict. They're scared, and scared Drachnids are the most dangerous kind. I promise, Lyra said, gathering her most crucial data cores. But Marcus? What I've discovered, being careful may not be enough. Not this time. As they left the lab, emergency lights began pulsing silently throughout Phoenix Station. In the distance, alarms started to wail. The Level 7 cafe buzzed with the usual mix of human and alien chatter, but Lyra noticed how the other patrons gave their corner table a wide berth. Marcus had that effect on people, even those who didn't know his reputation. He sat with his back to the wall, seemingly relaxed as he sipped his synthetic coffee, but his eyes constantly scanned the room. The Drachnids are hiding something fundamental about their biology, Lyra said, her voice low as she pulled up encrypted holograms from her data core. Look at these genetic markers. They're not natural evolution, they're engineered. Marcus studied the floating strands of alien DNA, his expression thoughtful. Engineered by whom? That's the question that got Dr. Ramon killed on Europa Station. Lyra's fingers danced through the hologram, highlighting specific sequences. Everyone assumed it was an environmental systems failure, but she'd found the same patterns I did. The Drachnids aren't just descended from their evolutionary ancestors, they were created by them. A flash of movement caught Marcus's attention. Director Victoria Hammond approached their table, her silver-streaked black hair pulled back severely, her dark skin contrasting with the stark white of her station administrator's uniform. She sat without invitation. We have a problem, Victoria said, sliding a secure data chip across the table. 6 hours ago, 3 more Drachnid warships entered the system. They're claiming routine patrol routes, but their trajectories suggest otherwise. Marcus picked up the chip, his jaw tightening. They're establishing a blockade pattern. Just like Perseus. Perseus, Lyra whispered. The conflict that had made her husband a legend, and nearly killed him. She remembered those dark days, waiting in a military hospital while Marcus fought for his life, his body ravaged by Drachnid biochemical weapons. But why now? The peace treaties mean nothing if what you've discovered is true, Victoria interrupted. The Drachnid high clutch bases their entire society on genetic purity and natural selection. If word gets out that they're artificial constructs, their entire power structure collapses, Marcus finished. No wonder they're scared. He looked at Lyra intently. What else aren't you telling us? Lyra hesitated, then entered a complex sequence into her data core. A new hologram appeared, a spiral structure unlike anything in known xenobiology. This is embedded in every Drachnid cell. It's not just engineering, it's a key. Their ancestors built a failsafe into their creation. A way to deactivate them. Victoria cursed softly. If the militant factions in Earth's government get hold of this, they'll push for immediate military action, Marcus said. Use it as a weapon. Start a war that'll make Perseus look like a border skirmish. His hand found Lyra's under the table, squeezing gently. How many others know? Just my core team. Dr. Patel and Dr. Novak. They're analyzing different aspects of the research. I kept the big picture compartmentalized. A shadow fell across their table. They looked up to see General Raxvir, the senior Drachnid military liaison, his massive frame blocking the artificial sunlight from the cafe's ceiling. Unlike Krosthor's warrior armor, Raxvir wore the sleek diplomatic attire of the High Clutch, but his bioluminescent patterns pulsed with barely contained aggression. Dr. Winters, he rumbled, all four eyes fixed on Lyra. The High Clutch requests your immediate presence. Your research has attracted attention. Marcus started to rise, but Raxvir raised a clawed hand. Only the doctor. This is a scientific matter, Ghost of Proxima. Unless you wish to escalate it to a military one. It's okay, Lyra said, gathering her data cores. I'll go. She met Marcus's worried gaze. They need to know we understand the implications. That we can find a peaceful solution. Victoria touched Marcus's arm as Lyra stood. I'll have security teams standing by. And Marcus? The Perseus protocols are still in place. Just say the word. As Lyra followed Raxvir's towering form through the station corridors, she noticed more Drachnid warriors than usual. Their biopatterns all showed the same fearful aggression she'd seen in Krosthor. They knew. Somehow, they all knew what she'd discovered. The general led her to the Drachnid diplomatic section, its atmosphere adjusted to their homeworld specifications. The air felt thick, humid, heavy with alien pheromones. In the central chamber, a semicircle of Drachnid elders waited, their ceremonial robes glittering with bioluminescent patterns she'd never seen before. Dr. Lyra Winters, Raxvir announced, then added something in untranslated Drachnid that made the elders' biopatterns pulse with alarm. The eldest stepped forward, his scales dulled with age but his eyes bright with intelligence. You have discovered our oldest secret, human female. Now you must make a choice. One that will determine the fate of both our species. Behind her, the chamber doors sealed with an ominous hiss. In her pocket, the emergency beacon Marcus had given her began to pulse silently, counting down to a confrontation that could reshape the galaxy. The Drachnid Council chamber felt like the inside of a living organism, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that reflected the elders' agitation. Lyra stood before them, her heart racing but her scientific mind cataloging every detail. The eldest Drachnid scales had a metallic sheen she'd never seen before, not natural evolution, but engineered perfection. Your research threatens everything, the elder said, his translator rendering his words in eerily smooth tones. But it also presents an opportunity. One that could save both our species. Lyra's mind raced. Save us? From what? The elder gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the chamber's center. It showed a star map, but unlike any she'd seen before. Vast sections of the galaxy were marked in pulsing red. They are returning, another elder spoke, her biopatterns displaying fear. The ones who made us. Our creators. The architects, Raxvir rumbled from behind Lyra. They seeded this galaxy with their experiments. We Drachnids were to be their warriors, their perfect soldiers. But we broke free, turned against them. They retreated beyond the galactic rim, but now. The star map zoomed in on a section of space. Massive objects moved through the void, their energy signatures unlike anything in known space. They've detected humanity's expansion, the first elder said. Your species' potential threatens them, just as we once did. They come to cleanse their laboratory. Lyra's blood ran cold as she understood. That's why you've been watching us. The Perseus conflict, it wasn't about territory at all. You were testing us. Testing your strength, Raxvir confirmed. Your worthiness as allies against what comes. But now you've discovered the fail-safe in our genetics. If your people use it against us. A commotion outside the chamber interrupted him. The doors slid open to reveal Krosthor, his armor bearing fresh battle marks. The human fleet. They're mobilizing at the system's edge. The Elder's biopatterns flared with alarm. The eldest turned to Lyra, all four eyes blazing. Your husband's doing. Marcus wouldn't, Lyra began, but her data core chimed. A message from Victoria Hammond scrolled across her retinal display, Earth Command found out. They're coming for the research. Marcus is stalling them, but you need to make a choice. Now. The chamber erupted in chaos as more reports flooded in. Human warships dropping out of hyperspace. Drachnid vessels moving to defensive positions. The powder keg was about to blow. The fail-safe in your genetics, Lyra said suddenly, her mind racing through possibilities. It's not just an off switch, is it? It's a key to something more. The eldest's biopatterns shifted to a color she'd never seen before. The architects built us as weapons, but they feared their own creations. The failsafe was meant to control us, but our ancestors discovered it could be modified. Enhanced. Your cellular regeneration, Lyra breathed. It's not just healing. It's transformation. You can rewrite your own genetic code. And now you understand why this knowledge cannot spread, Raxvir said. If humanity learns this secret, they'll try to replicate it, Lyra finished. Start an arms race. Both are species trying to engineer themselves into living weapons before the architects arrive. She looked at her data core, containing research that could reshape or destroy two civilizations. But there's another way. The chamber's lighting shifted as Phoenix Station's alert status elevated. Through the transparent sections of the wall, she could see ships maneuvering in space, human and drachnid vessels in a deadly dance of approaching conflict. Your research, the eldest said, combined with our ancient knowledge. It could help both our species evolve beyond the architect's control. But it would mean sharing secrets we've kept for millennia. Trusting humans with the power to unmake us. And trusting you with humanity's future, Lyra countered. She thought of Marcus, of the scars he still carried from Perseus. Of the fear and mistrust between their species that had led them to this moment. But if we don't trust each other now, there won't be a future for either of us. Her emergency beacon pulsed again. Marcus was coming. Whatever happened next would determine the fate of two species. The eldest must have sensed her thoughts, because his biopatterns shifted to decision mode. Dr. Winters, he said formally, let us show you what the architects truly created us to be. Then you can decide if humanity is ready for such knowledge. The chamber's walls began to transform, revealing hidden mechanisms that predated human civilization. As Lyra watched in fascination, she realized she was about to witness either the beginning of an unprecedented alliance, or the spark that would ignite an apocalyptic war. In orbit above them, the human and drachnid fleets continued their tense standoff, waiting for a signal that would tell them whether to open fire or stand down. And somewhere beyond the galaxy's edge, ancient beings watched their experiments, unaware that their creations were about to evolve beyond their control. The hidden chamber beneath the drachnid diplomatic section hummed with ancient power. Lyra watched in amazement as the eldest elder's scales began to shift, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to move like liquid metal. The other elders formed a circle, their bioluminescence synchronizing into a hypnotic rhythm. What you're about to see, the eldest said, has not been witnessed by human eyes since the dawn of our civilization. Before he could continue, Marcus's voice came through Lyra's emergency beacon. Earth Command's flagship just dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Reynolds is demanding immediate surrender of all research data. We have minutes, not hours. The eldest's expression remained unreadable, but his biopatterns showed urgency. Then we must accelerate our plans. Dr. Winters, observe. The chamber's central platform activated, revealing a pool of swirling liquid that seemed to defy physics. The eldest stepped into it, and his form began to change. His massive frame shifted, scales flowing like quicksilver, until he stood transformed, no longer bound by his original form. The architects designed us to be adaptable, he explained, his voice resonating differently through his altered form. But they never imagined we would learn to control it ourselves. To evolve beyond their limitations. Lyra's scientific mind raced with possibilities. The genetic key I discovered, it's not just a failsafe. It's an activation sequence. For what we truly are, Raxvir confirmed. But the power requires incredible discipline. Many who attempt the transformation are lost to it. Become. He gestured to a sealed door, behind which Lyra heard disturbing sounds. We call them the failed ones. The price of our evolution. A violent shudder ran through Phoenix Station. Above them, the confrontation between fleets had begun. Director Hammond's voice cut through their comms, multiple ships launching fighters. Weapons charging on both sides. We're out of time. The eldest elder, still in his transformed state, turned to Lyra. Your research could perfect the process. Remove the risk of failure. Help both our species transcend our Creator's limitations. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it would create monsters, Lyra finished. She thought of power-hungry military leaders, corrupt politicians, anyone who would use this knowledge without understanding its consequences. But if we don't find a way to work together, the architects will destroy us all. The chamber rocked with another impact. Krosthor burst in, his armor smoking. Human boarding parties have breached the outer sections. They're after the research data. Marcus's voice came through again, Lyra, Reynolds is deploying neural marines. Once they breach the Drachnid section, they'll take the data by force, from your mind if necessary. The eldest elder's form rippled with tension. Choose now, Dr. Winters. Trust us with humanity's future, or trust your own kind with powers they may not be ready to control. Lyra looked at her data core, then at the transformation chamber. In her mind, she saw the star map showing the architect's approach. Their time was running out, but a wrong choice now could doom them all. There's a third option, she said suddenly. But it would require both sides to take an enormous risk. She turned to face the elder. Show me the failed ones. I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. The elder's biopatterns registered surprise, then recognition. You propose to find a middle path. Even as our fleets prepare for war. Science isn't about control, Lyra said firmly. It's about understanding. And right now, neither of our species fully understands what we're dealing with. The station shook again. Through the chamber's walls, they could hear weapons fire getting closer. The neural marines were advanced boarding troops, designed to extract information directly from organic minds. Once they breached the section, there would be no more time for choices. Very well, the eldest said. But what you're about to see may change how you view both our species forever. As the sealed door began to open, Lyra sent a coded message to Marcus through her emergency beacon. Everything now depended on his trust in her judgment, and whether she could convince both sides to step back from the brink before it was too late. The failed one's chamber lay before them, its contents hidden in swirling mist. As Lyra stepped forward, she heard Marcus's voice one last time through the beacon, whatever you're planning, do it fast. Reynolds just gave the order. They're coming in hot. The mist parted, revealing the consequences of playing with powers beyond their understanding. Lyra steeled herself, knowing that what she learned in the next few minutes would determine the fate of two civilizations, and perhaps the survival of all sentient life in the galaxy. The failed one's chamber was a testament to the price of ambition. Twisted forms floated in stasis fields, drachnids caught between states of transformation, their genetic code fractured by incomplete evolution. But among them, Lyra saw something the elders had missed. They're not failed, she breathed, studying the readings on her data core. They're incomplete. The transformation isn't meant to be done alone. Before she could explain further, the station's security barriers screamed in protest. Neural Marines had reached their level, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. Through the chamber walls, energy weapons flared. The eldest Elder's transformed state rippled with tension. "Explain quickly, Dr. Winters." "The architects didn't create you to be soldiers," Lyra said, her fingers flying over her data core. "They created you to be adaptable. But the genetic key isn't just about physical transformation, it's about connection. Synchronization. The failed ones tried to evolve individually, but the process was meant to be collective." A blast door buckled under sustained fire. Krosthor and other warriors moved to defensive positions, but Lyra knew they couldn't hold off Neural Marines forever. These elite troops could literally rip information from minds, and they had orders to secure her research by any means necessary. "Marcus," she called through her beacon. "Remember Perseus? When you said the Drachnids fought like they shared one mind?" Her husband's voice came back tense but trusting. "Because they did. Somehow they coordinated without communications we could detect." "But what does that?" He paused. "Lyra, what are you planning?" She turned to the eldest Elder. "Your ancestors didn't break free from the architects through force. They did it by joining together in ways their creators never imagined. But over time, you forgot. Started transforming individually, seeking personal power instead of collective evolution." The Elder's biopatterns shifted to a deep, thoughtful hue. "And your research could help you remember. Help both our species learn to connect, to evolve together." She held up her data core. "This isn't a weapon. It's an invitation." The chamber's outer door began to glow red-hot as Neural Marine cutting tools went to work. They had moments, not minutes. "A noble theory," Raxvir growled, "but the human fleet." "Will stand down," Marcus's voice cut in. He had patched their conversation to Director Hammond and, more importantly, to Admiral Reynolds' command channel. "Because Dr. Winters just proved what I've suspected since Perseus. We're not looking at an arms race. We're looking at the next step in both our species' evolution." The eldest Elder's form rippled with decision. "The transformation chamber. If you're wrong, then I'll be the first failed one who was fully human," Lyra said. She stepped toward the swirling liquid matrix. "But I don't think I am." The Neural Marines breached the outer door in a shower of molten metal. Time slowed as multiple events collided. Krosthor and his warriors raised their weapons. The Elder Council began to glow with synchronized biopatterns. Marcus's voice shouted a warning. And Lyra Winters stepped into the transformation chamber. The liquid embraced her like a living thing. Her consciousness expanded, touching first the Elder Council's minds, then reaching further. She felt Marcus's presence, his shock turning to understanding. Through him, she touched the minds of the Neural Marines, the fleet commanders, every human and Drachnid within range. For one eternal moment, they all saw through each other's eyes. Felt each other's fears, hopes, and dreams. Understood that the architects hadn't created weapons or tools, they had unknowingly created the means of their own transcendence. When the light faded, Lyra stood transformed. Not into a monster or a weapon, but into something that was neither fully human nor Drachnid. Around her, the Elder Council had also changed, their forms reflecting the same harmonic evolution. The Neural Marines lowered their weapons, their neural interfaces overwhelmed by the psychic backwash of what they'd witnessed. Through the station's windows, the human and Drachnid fleets held position, their crews shaken by the edges of the shared consciousness they'd touched. "Well," Marcus said, entering the chamber and seeing his wife's new form, "I guess this explains why the architects are so afraid of us." Lyra smiled with iridescent lips. "Afraid of what we can become together." She reached out, touching minds with him, sharing the incredible vista of possibility she now saw. The architects created the Drachnids to be the perfect weapons. But they didn't realize they were really creating the perfect bridge. Between their children and ours, the eldest elder said, his transformed state resonating with new understanding. Until both could evolve into something greater. Through her expanded consciousness, Lyra felt the ripples of change already spreading through both fleets, both species. The architects were coming, yes, but they would find something very different from what they expected. They wanted to cleanse their laboratory, she said, watching the first shimmer of transformation begin in those around her. Instead, they're about to meet their successors. In the space above Phoenix Station, the human and Drachnid fleets began to move. Not in conflict, but in harmony, preparing for a reunion with their creators that would reshape the galaxy. The war had been averted, but an even greater adventure was just beginning. Marcus took Lyra's transformed hand, his skin already showing the first signs of change. Ready to help two species evolve. She squeezed his hand, feeling the future unfold before them. Together, she said. The only way it was ever meant to be. Behind them, the failed ones stirred in their stasis fields, ready to be awakened into a new era where failure was impossible, because no one would ever have to transform alone again.